Hey, everybody. Welcome to Hot and Cold edition of Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. I'm your host, Dan Besbris, and today we will explore the players that have been the biggest movers up or down the board thanks to a very hot last 7 days of basketball action. And then, if there are players among that list that we think have moved far enough that are now a great trade opportunity or a opportunity, that is great wordplay. BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. They've got the earliest odds. They've got in-game live betting and the ability to watch the games as they're going down. Plus, the largest selection of odds on everything from football to NBA, college hoops, NHL, UFC. You can bet on it there. And so, head to BetOnline today. Use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for a welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline. The game starts here. Drop a like on the show, drop a subscription on the channel, and please navigate to our trade deadline live show. That link is in the show description, and pre-like that sucker. That's February the 6th, Thursday morning. We'll be going live first thing when the sun is up here on the West Coast, and we'll be rolling straight through all the way past the trade deadline and breaking it down with some of the best analysts on planet Earth. Myself, Adam King, will be hosting that show, and we need those pre-likes so that the show explodes the second we go live. It's a behind-the-scenes thing. You don't need to care about it. The short version is if you don't have pre-likes, then your show has to hit the algorithm repeatedly. And if you do, it just farts right into the algorithm for everybody. So I need your help on that one. Let's get those pre-likes going. Let's get this show on the road. Welcome to Hot and Cold Week 11. I don't care what Yahoo calls it. This is the 11th week of the damn season. Therefore, I am calling it Week 11, even if it's period 10 on Yahoo. Welcome to 2025, lovers of things hot and cold. I'm Dan Besbris on Twitter, DanBesbris, Old Man Squad on Blue Sky, and Old Man Squad Fantasy on Instagram. Hit that like, hit that rate, hit that subscribe, hit that go button. Here are the risers, including how far they've moved. And then for the ones that we're going to break down a little bit longer, we'll highlight them in either green or blue. Green is a sell high, blue is a buy low. Not surprisingly, the sell highs are in the risers board. The buy lows are in the fallers board. And then those in between are just guys that moved a long way where I don't think a trade is the optimal outcome. Biggest mover of the last week is, for the second week in a row, Mark Williams. Oh, yes, it's happening, people. He's up another 42 slots. He was 165 on December 20th. And he's number 77 today. That's hard to do, but less hard when you've only played a handful of games. Russell Westbrook up 27 slots, not a sell high. He's just playing a lot better, and certainly with Aaron Gordon out, he's an injury replacement level guy. Kelly Oubre jumped 24 slots and then hurt himself, so... And here's the first name on the board that we want to pause on, and that's Joel Embiid, who is, not surprisingly, now healthy, starting to fly up the board. He was 164 when he made his season debut back on November the 13th, needed some more time off, and then basically came back, jumped all the way up into the 60s, 70s, 80s range, was kind of in and out of the lineup a little, and over the last 2 weeks, he's played relatively consistently, except for back-to-backs, and he's jumped from number 88 to number 53, and then to number 29. So basically, effectively, 60 slots in 2 weeks, roughly. Roughly is good enough. What do we do with Joel Embiid? This is a hard one because I think the natural inclination, and it's not wrong, is to try to sell on him while he's upright. But as with all things in life, it's going to come down to the return on what you're getting. Because right now, Embiid is number 29, while averaging 24, 7.5, and 4, a steal, a block, and a 3 on 45-91 splits. You know damn well that 45% field goal is going up. And the 17 shots per game, that's going up. Everything that he's doing right now is, Dan points north, toward the sky. It's not north. North is that way. It's going up. So technically, Joel Embiid is probably, on a per-game basis at least, going to get better than where he is right now. He's a mid-third rounder. He's likely to end up as a first-rounder at some point this year. So that's the buy side of the equation. The sell side of the equation is he's played a handful of games in a row, and there hasn't been a thing that's truly knocked him out. He's been questionable with this foot thing, but really all he's done is sat on the back-to-back. My take on Embiid is if you can get equal value for him right now, you take it. Meaning if you can get an early third rounder back, you take it and you get out of there. Get out of the Embiid business before the wheels fall off. That's roto head-to-head, whatever. I know that with a games cap, you can afford to take the missed games, but there is the fear that he plays like 15 games the rest of the season. I don't think that's going to happen. I think you're going to get probably, 20-something, maybe 30-something the rest of the way. But the fear there is enough where I'm like, look, if I'm going to get a 25 to 30 range guy somewhere in that neck of the woods, that's a good enough player where I can afford to get out of the Embiid business. I am not selling him for a fourth rounder. I don't want, number 40. Although number 40 right now is Anthony Edwards, who you're not going to get for Joel Embiid. I would sell Embiid for Harden or Anthony Edwards. I wouldn't sell him for OG Anunoby or Jakob Poeltl or Jarrett Allen or Walker Kessler or Isaiah Hartenstein or these guys that are really like bona fide fourth rounders, regardless of punt build kind of fourth round types of dudes. That's not good enough. Those guys are good. Those guys are small needle movers. I mean, OG's been excellent this year, and Poeltl's been excellent, and Kessler and Hartenstein. These guys have been very good basketball players. But those are not guys that are going to win you your league in the way that Joel Embiid, if healthy, could do so. Whereas on the flip side of that is, like, if you can get De'Aaron Fox back for Embiid right now, that's a guy that can go out there and win you, not win you a league, but win you categories that then win you a league. De'Aaron Fox is good enough when you compare him to an Isaiah Hartenstein. There's a wide enough gap there between those two dudes of about 18 to 20 rank slots that to me is the gap between what I would and wouldn't do with Embiid right now. Okay, let's get back into the names that'll allow us to speed along a little bit. Kelly Oubre Jr. up 24 slots. Then he hurt himself, so who the hell cares on that one? Donte DiVincenzo up 20 slots. He's a firm add and hold and has been since a week and change back when he started to pick up those extra minutes, shot the ball a little bit better. It seems like Minnesota's ready to kind of turn him loose. He is not a sell high. He's a hold to see if this keeps going in the right direction. Justin Champagnie's minutes are all over the map. He had that gigantic overtime 45-minute game, and that's why his rank jumped 19 slots. But around that, he got no consistent playing time and is a huge headache. Jrue Holiday finally moving up the board, up 19 slots over the last week. He's up to number 101. I mean, honestly, you could see him getting better. Field goal percent still only at 45. Blocks are still only at 0.4. The other stuff is finally kind of rounding into shape a little for Jrue. And we always kind of thought he'd be in that 85 to 100 range, which is basically where he's at now. So, A-okay. Leave it alone. Daniel Gafford jumped 19 slots. He is a sell high. I don't know why I forgot to highlight him. He's very clearly a sell high on this board. And those of you that are watching on YouTube are getting to see some of the other names. All right, how do we get this guy highlighted? There we go. Let's get back to doing the show. Gafford is very much a sell high. I don't know that you can still do it. He jumped up to number 112. He was actually slightly ahead of that before the last ball game because Derek Lively was out. And we talked about that on every recap show for the last 6 or 7 recap shows in a row. Try to get off of Daniel Gafford. This is your chance. Lively's taking the job. It's not coming back. Probably missed your window now, but worth a shot. And we're at a point, too, with Gafford. And I fear that I'm repeating myself from a bunch of different shows. So I don't want to spend too much time on the Gaff man. But if you can get anybody, literally any center that's around him or better, you do it. Zach Edey, I would go Edey. Let's see, who's... I don't know about Naz Reid. That one's iffy. Jonas Valanciunas, you do it. Tobias Harris, not a center, but you do it. Who are other centers in there? Lively, you're not going to get. PJ Washington, Ivica Zubac, Rudy Gobert. Try for all of those guys. Abandon ship. Devin Vassell up 19 slots. He's just going to keep creeping up the board. Zach Edey up 19, and then he had a concussion. Although he's questionable, I think, now for the Grizzlies' next ball game. That's tonight. That's actually as we're recording. It's coming up in like 3 hours from when we're recording this show. And when the show drops, the game has probably already started. Not much you can do there with Edey. Jaylen Brown up 18 slots. He was actually more of a buy low. That's now kind of pivoting back in the right direction. Herb Jones is up to number 100. Still feels like he's trending up and not down. Let's go to the next page of buy low guys, because there's a few names that we're going to pause on. Jamal Murray up 17 additional slots. He has been really, really good of late. He's up to number 32 on the year. But a lot of that's because Jamal Murray is at 2.2 defensive stats right now. The other stuff is relatively sustainable. So then why, you may be asking yourself, every time I say why, I think of, I don't know if you guys remember Gilbert Gottfried's version of the Aristocrats. Go watch that movie if you can. Why all the blood? Jamal Murray is number 32 this year. He finished at number 32 last year at 1.7 defensive stats, 48% shooting from the field, and then everything else was pretty stinking close to what it is right now, like almost a carbon copy. If you ratchet the field goal percent up, his scoring will come with it. If you bring the steals back down, ta-da, and one thing covers the other. So from a rank standpoint, this is a pretty repeatable number for him, early 30s. He always seemed like a guy that had per game upside, but injury potential. And that's the reason that you might want to think about selling high on Jamal Murray. This is not a, abandoned ship kind of thing like with Daniel Gafford. This is feel around in your league to see if somebody else wants to have that little bit of extra risk. And it's an opportunity for you to get a little bit of profit, because likely you probably drafted Jamal in the mid to late 50s, if I'm remembering. We can double check ourselves on what that last ADP, what was the last pre-rank on Jamal Murray? He was where are you, Jamal? Oh, 65. Dang, that's way low. He went down 14 on the last board, though. He was at 51, and then he dropped, and so his ADP was kind of like in the middle of moving as all that was going down. It wasn't back down. It was like 55. So anyway, point is, you probably got him in the 5th round, probably late 5th round. He's performing as a mid-3rd rounder, meaning you've got a 2-round gap where you can kind of lock in profit. And at the end of the day, if you can lock in profit and try to dodge a little bit of the fear element, that might be the way to go. See if you can get a Jarrett Allen for him. Boring, yes, but locked in profit. OG Anunoby, Jakob Poeltl, Walker Kessler, Hartenstein, all these guys we just talked about a minute ago are kind of locked in profit. Not that Poeltl isn't a little bit injury prone, and Kessler's also a tiny bit injury prone. Tyler Hero, I don't know. I would classify both of those guys potentially as sell high guys. I don't think you're going to get Darius Garland. That was one you could think about pursuing. I don't think you want Cam Johnson, because if he gets traded, he falls from top 40 to probably top 80. But there are names floating around. Pascal Siakam is sort of locked in, very small amount of profit, but a locked in little bit of profit. I'm looking to see if there's anybody that's been falling like a boulder. I don't think you're going to be able to get James Harden, but if you could package something together, that might be an interesting little buy low. But that's the thought on Jamal Murray. Scottie Barnes is up 17 slots. He's just on his way to where he belongs. Draymond Green up 16 after falling like 30. So this is just sort of like the rebound. Jarrett Allen is up 14 slots, which happens every time he falls into the 50s. It's almost like he's watching his fantasy rank. He's like, no, can't let that happen. Isaiah Hartenstein up 13. This was always bound to happen. He was running weirdly cold at the free throw line. That's now back up around 70%, which is kind of where you expected. And everything else is kind of the same. He's number 46 now. That's cool. DeAndre Hunter up 13 more slots. He's averaging 20.5 points, 4 boards, almost 3 threes, a steal on 50-86 splits. I like DeAndre Hunter. You guys know that I was weirdly high on him coming into the year, and I think that I was not completely alone on that, but I was close to alone on that one. But I'm also not an idiot, and I know that when it's time to just to walk away from the blackjack table, which is basically where we're at with DeAndre Hunter right now, I feel like we got our win. Lock in the profit. You're not going to get his actual rank because people aren't going to believe in DeAndre Hunter. And a lot of that's because, like, he wasn't drafted very high. Not a lot of analysts were super into him this year. I didn't draft him mostly anywhere either. But as soon as I saw the way the Hawks were splitting usage in minutes, I tried to pounce on it. But you might be able to get somebody that's like a round and a half behind him in overall rankings that's been boring. That's your target, is a boring player behind DeAndre Hunter. Watch over your shoulder, bud. Tyus Jones at 80, boring player behind DeAndre Hunter. I'd rather have. Not because I think he's going to do better, but because it's just safe. Hunter has knee issues. He's shooting over his head. Michael Porter Jr., boring player behind DeAndre Hunter. You're probably not going to get MPJ because he scores 19 points a game. Look for somebody who's scoring more like, 10 to 15. Tyus Jones was at 12 and a half. Christian Brown, I might rather just take my shot on Hunter. Brown also kind of feels like he's playing a little bit over his head. DeAndre Ayton, if somebody wants to abandon ship there, that's a risk you could maybe take on at almost no cost. Miles Bridges, PJ Washington, these are all guys that are 2 rounds behind DeAndre in overall rank. Derek Lively. These guys are all really interesting upside plays where you're getting rid of Hunter at his kind of the apex here. Trey Murphy up 12 more slots, and he's going crazy right now. Trey's up to number 35. And yes, admittedly, is another situation where we love the guy in question. I'm not alone on this one. I feel like Rhett Bauer and Alex Rickleen were probably the biggest Trey guys we had on the show during the run-up to the season. I might be getting that wrong. If you guys remember which analyst it was, feel free to yell at me in the comments. That's totally fine. I'm sure I deserve it. We've had like 80 some odd analyst guest hits on the podcast. I'm not going to remember who did what. Trey's great, but he's also not going to take 16 shots forever, because if Zion ever shows up, down goes the usage. If Brandon Ingram ever shows up, down goes the usage. We hear that CJ McCollum is on the block. We know Brandon Ingram's on the block. Yes, it's possible that this could spin around so many times, you're sort of shaking up the snow globe repeatedly in New Orleans, that Trey ends up right back where he was here. But if you can lock in top 50, top 55, that's probably the window. I don't know that I think I'd rather just ride it out if the best thing you're going to get back is, I don't know, like Michael Porter Jr. I don't want MPJ. I'd rather have Trey Murphy by a lot. But if someone's willing to give you, a trade demanding Jimmy Butler, that might be the way to go, troubled though he may be. I don't want Norman Powell. I might consider Freddie VanVleet. Bam Adebayo I would take, but you're probably not going to get him because people are weirdly high on Bam, even though he's consistently in this 50 to 60 range. Could you get someone like a Hartenstein or a Kessler or a Pirtle or an OG? You probably could, and I probably would. These are the guys to think about. Lock it in. Lock in the profit. Last 2 dudes on the rise. Desmond Bane up 10 slots. He's just finally going where he belongs. And Tyrese Haliburton up 8 more. It's hard to move 8 slots when you're already up near the top of the board. But Haliburton from 27 to 19. He's he's a turn guy. He's like number 13, I think, over the last month. He's just been coming on after that tough start. Eventually, he's going to have so many weeks where he's sitting right around number 12 that he's just going to kind of be number 12. 19, if you drafted him in the mid to late first round and he's number 19 now, I think you're probably looking at it going, yeah, this is all right, considering what things looked like after the first 4 weeks. Quick commercial break, and then we'll get you the fallers. Fallers, shorter list as per usual, because a lot of the guys in the falling board are guys that suck anyway. Biggest fallers, the first 4 of them, I don't want anything to do with anyway. Dorian Finney-Smith, who again, he's going to be a great real life addition to the Lakers, but he's down 44 slots because he's just not going to do anything on offense. Jeremy Sochan down 27 slots. He's a little bit of a buy low, but not all the way a buy low, because for one, he's out with back issues. That's troubling. And for 2, he was playing over his head prior to this drop-off. I think He's number 117 right now with no punts, is probably around where Sochan finishes up. If you're punting free throws, he slides back inside the top 100. He's a guy that should be rostered in a lot of head-to-head builds. I don't know that he's a must-roster guy in Roto. He's probably close, but it really won't make or break your Roto team if you're not rostering a guy who's a low free throw, 0 3-pointers wing. I mean, he scores a little bit. He rebounds pretty well. Does the good outweigh the bad? Barely? Maybe? Anyway, Dennis Schroder down 24 slots. You're not going to buy on him. If anything, you're just waiting for somebody to drop him. Jalen Green down 21 more slots. By the way, Buddy Hield is not on the board this week, but as I was going through some of these numbers, it jumped out to me the incredible change from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. The very first 2 weeks of the season, Jalen Green was number 36 and Buddy Hield was inside the top 40. Jalen Green's now 149 and Hield is 171. It's why the beginning of the year is so powerful. Think back to what your brain was telling you after watching Buddy Hield for a week and a half. Was your brain saying this is a top 50 guy this year? It happens everywhere he goes. What about Jalen Green? Were you looking at it going, is this guy really going to take like 22 shots a game and be good? No, don't worry. Reality. Hello, ton of bricks. Malik Beasley is our first little buy low on the board, but probably, if anything, you were able to scoop him. He's going to see a nice bump with Jaden Ivey out for the year. But at the same time, Beasley's a low percentages guy whose skill is to hit a ton of 3-pointers. So if those ever dry up even for a week, he's going to have a bad rank for that one. And he's been cold a little bit lately too. Still, I think he's probably going to hover around the edge of the top 100 because his fantasy game is so intensely limited. But I mean, unless your team is unless you're punting threes or you're totally running away with them, he probably does belong on rosters. And it feels like you should be able to buy. PJ Washington is a buy. He's down 19 slots, but a lot of that's because he left a ball game early. Every time that happens to a player, they drop in the rankings. He's down outside the top 80 now. When he comes back, hopefully from this knee sprain, and hopefully it's not long, he should have a pretty good path back up around-ish, something like that. But even if he hovers in this 85 range, you're probably going to find some people that are like, oh, no, PJ's done. He's cooked. And you might be able to get him for, somebody in the 100 to 120 spot that's been hot lately. Who would that be? Daniel Gafford. Jonas Valanciunas. I might even go Jrue Holiday. That's an interesting one. He's finally warming up. Now you cash in on it. Bobby Portis. I'd rather have PJ than all those dudes. But the other people in your league might also. Keegan Murray down 17 slots. The tumble is on. He's now down to 123, shooting 41% this year. 41%, people. Keegan Murray has been monstered. But the beautiful part of the NBA is that at some point, guys go back to being what they are. And Keegan Murray last year shot 36% on high volume 3-pointers. Yes, his usage is down year over year. That was built into the handicap this season. It's why I didn't want to draft him anywhere. But last year, he was a 60s ranked guy in 12.5 shots a game. And this year, if he truly does sit on 11 shots a ball game, you're talking about a guy that should be up around 2 3-pointers and should be up around 13 and change, probably 13.5 points per game. And he should have a steal and 0.8 blocks, and his rebounds are actually up year over year. And everything else looks like it's pretty good, but he cannot shoot. He's shooting 28.5% from downtown this year. His shot's just cooked. I believe he'll get it turned around in the second half. I believe you're looking at a Keegan Murray that could roll top 80 once he starts to find his shot. And he's a guy you can get for pennies. He's a really easy buy low who, on bad days, it's gonna be a damn quiet line. The good thing about Keegan Murray is he's not going to go out there and just detonate your team because he's a good foul shooter. He doesn't turn the ball over. So the one thing you're dealing with is a poor field goal percent. And the hope is that that gets turned around, again, preferably sooner than later. And he's hurt right now. He's dealing with some ankle soreness. You could get him for nothing, I would think. Norman Powell down 15 slots, not a buy low. He's been a sell high since the first day of the year, especially with Kawhi Leonard likely around the corner. Tyus Jones down 14 slots. He'll be fine. He's just going to fluctuate with whether he's getting assists or scoring efficiency, whether the Suns are getting smashed, whatever. But his teammate, Bradley Beal, who's down 13 more slots, is, and this is a nauseating one, Bradley Beal is a buy low at number 83. His 76% foul shooting should come up, but more than anything, his playing time. He keeps leaving halfway through ball games. And I guess that's the fear, is that maybe that just happens all year. So if you have a team that's already a little bit dinged up, don't do it. If you have some room to take on a distressed asset, which is what he's been all season long. He's played in 22 games, but it's been an annoying 22. You should be able to get him for somebody a round or two back of where he's at, like a Jrue Holiday or a Tobias Harris when he has a better ball game, or an Amen Thompson when he gets a fill-in game, or Gafford when he's hot, or Io if he comes back and plays well. There's a lot of names you could throw out there that people would consider giving up on Bradley Beal for because they're just done with him. They're just sick of it. They're sick of it. CJ McCollum would be a great one. CJ never goes higher than where he's at right now. Beal can. You're getting one guy where they belong and the other guy at their floor with risk. Andrew Wiggins down 13 slots. He's just a hold. Anthony Edwards down 12 slots. I'd call him a buy low, but you're not going to be able to get him for what he should be getting traded for, which is probably someone near 30. You'd have to give up somebody in probably the 11 to 22 range, and I don't want to do that. Jimmy Butler. Oh, boy. Jimmy Butler is probably the toughest buy low to pull off right now, because whoever has him is so irritated that they're going to be like, you know what, screw this. I'm just going to wait it out. He sort of jumped the sell shark. It's a nonsense expression in how this works, but he's become such a lightning rod that teams are not going to want to part with him because they're like, oh, this is a guy who's pissed. He's demanded a trade. He's a mess. As soon as the Heat trade him, he's going to go nuts. We're past the buy low. The buy low would have been before the trade demand when he was playing 25 minutes in these last two games and out with diarrhea. It wasn't diarrhea. It may be diarrhea of the mouth. As my grandpa used to call it, the shitanopsis of the blowhole. May he rest in peace, David Walter. It's whoever has him now is going to wait it out, find out where he goes, and he's going to smash for somebody because he's going to be pissed at Jimmy Butler. So this is actually a really hard buy low to pull off. If you happen to catch the manager that's like, I don't want to deal with him anymore, go even money on him, and it'll be a win. Go DeMar DeRozan, go Zach LaVine, go DeAndre Hunter, Brandon Miller, Mikal Bridges, any of these guys in the 60s. Because Butler, as soon as he lands somewhere, he's probably a top 30 guy, wherever that is. James Harden down 10 slots. The Clippers look like they're a little low on gas right now, which is not surprising because I think they're at that point where they're like kind of smelling the return of Kawhi Leonard. Luckily, they're still 19-15, and they've been playing really well at home this year, and their defense has been good. So they kind of have a little bit of wiggle room to hang on, as it were. But you can kind of see it. Harden, the efficiency's been kind of bad all year, but right now the assists are also down a little bit. He's fallen to number 39. His assists are under 8 for the first time all year. The field goal percent's still low. The turnovers are still way too high. He and Trae Young are basically neck and neck at this point. Trae punching him in the mouth in assists. Harden winning the rebounding battle. Otherwise, they have the exact same statistical profile. It's borderline weird. The thing is Trae is kind of doing everything right now, and Harden isn't. I actually believe that James Harden is going to get better when Kawhi Leonard comes around because he's still going to be running a lot of the offense. He's just not going to be doing it with 3 defenders in his face every time. So expect the field goal percent to go up. Expect the assist rate to be easier for James. I think it's a buy low on Harden. I think you can get him for an early third, late second, like a 25 to 30, 23 to 30 kind of guy. And I would probably do it. Darius Garland would be a really nice one to try offering up, or De'Aaron Fox. I would take Harden over those guys. I think he jumps over them here in the next month. Cade Cunningham down 10 slots. He was running really hot before, so this is probably more where he belongs. He actually is a lot like the other 2 guys we just talked about in Trae Young and James Harden, but not as good of a foul shooter. Take away the free throw shooting from those other guys, and you've got Cade Cunningham. It's a round and a half deeper. And the last name on the board today is also another buy low, and that is Rudy Gobert. The Stifle Tower is not stifling. He's at 10.5 rebounds this year and only 1.4 blocks per game. Almost everything for Gobert is down, down, down. Except the minutes. The rebounding rate is way down. Defensive rebounding rate, I should say, way down. Field goal attempts per game, way down. Free throw attempts per game, way down. Blocks per game, back like his first year in Minnesota, but career-wise, way down. So when you look at the numbers and you're like, well, what's really going to come back for this dude? Because he's actually shooting a career best at the foul line right now on top of everything else. My assumption, and we'll see how this goes, my assumption is that rebounds are probably the thing that ticks upward. He's never rebounded this poorly at any point in his career. 33.5 minutes and only 10.5 rebounds. Anytime he's been at this mark, he's been above that. And the closest was kind of a semi-beat-up 2017 season in Utah, where he was at 32 and change minutes and averaged 10.7 rebounds. He's also under his career mark in field goal percent because the Wolves have no offensive identity. They're still trying to figure that out. And I'll be honest, I don't know that they're ever going to. I also don't know that the blocks are going to come back because they're playing kind of a different sort of defense where they don't just funnel everybody to Gobert because pretty much everyone on that team can guard their position now. So I don't think the blocks are necessarily coming back. They might randomly fluctuate a little bit higher to 1.5 or 1.6, but I would not bank on 2 blocks per game out of Rudy this year. I do think the rebounds get better. I do think the offense gets a little bit better. And while I am inclined to say that this is probably just going to be a down year for Rudy, you're going to find someone who's so irritated with him that they'll give him up for a center ranked right nearby. Like a Derek Lively, or who did we talk about earlier in the show is right around there. You could probably get Gobert for Lively. I would probably do it. You could probably get Gobert for McCollum. I would do it. You could probably get him for Kobe White. I would do it. You could probably get him for Malik Monk. I might do it. Probably would do it. Bilal might get it done. Amen Thompson, hot Daniel Gafford might have gotten it done, but Derek Lively back, Daniel Gafford will not. Zach Edey might get it done after a big ball game. Take the stab, because again, worst case scenario, you just continue to get like a top 100 Rudy. Uh-oh. And we got news breaking on the injury front right in the middle of this thing. Jabari Smith Jr. fractured his hand during shoot-around. That sucks. Oh, man. And Tari Eason is still out. Don't sell Amen Thompson. Don't give him up for anything. He's got 2 months of destroying people on hand right now. Unless Tari Eason comes back, and then he's going to destroy everybody. But Tari Eason is back out again. Anyway, that's not the point of today's show. We'll talk about the Jabari Smith Jr. news over on Twitter. It just happened to break while we were talking about these other things. Quick recap on what we've been discussing here on today's program. Joel Embiid, Daniel Gafford, Jamal Murray, DeAndre Hunter, and Trey Murphy are your, was that 5 names? 5 sells. Your 7 buy lows: Malik Beasley, PJ Washington, Keegan Murray, Bradley Beal, Jimmy Butler, James Harden, and Rudy Gobert. I'm Dan Besbris at Old Man Squad on Blue Sky, at Dan Besbris on Twitter. Find me over there. Please like the Trade Deadline live show listed in the show description. And for the love of Pete, subscribe to Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball, however you're taking in the content. Much love to all of you guys. Tomorrow morning, Saturday a.m., first thing, we're doing our big week in review show with all the ads, drops, and holds. That's always a crowd pleaser. And then Sunday, we will preview week 12, period 11, and then start it all over again. Hugs and kisses, friends. I'll talk to you when I talk to you. Guess that's it. Go home. It's over.